Everyone gets a 20% raise except you, my boss Robert announced with that smug grin I'd grown to despise. Your performance just doesn't cut it. The conference room felt like a freezer as my colleagues avoided eye contact, suddenly fascinated by their coffee cups. 3 years of 60-hour weeks, cancelled weekend plans, and building our entire West Coast division from scratch, all dismissed with one cruel sentence. I sat perfectly still, watching him tap his Mont Blanc pen against the quarterly report I'd written. The same report showing I'd generated 45% of our new revenue this year. I understand, I said quietly, gathering my papers. We'll reassess in 6 months, he added with that dismissive wave that made my skin crawl. Walking back to my desk, my phone buzzed. A text from Harrison at Pacific Industries about finalizing our exclusive partnership deal, the one worth $15 million that Robert knew nothing about yet. A plan began forming in my mind. Sometimes the best revenge isn't an argument, it's a demonstration. And tomorrow's board meeting would be the perfect stage. Before I tell you what happened next, you need to understand something. I'm not someone who seeks revenge. But there comes a point when standing up for yourself becomes necessary, not just for your dignity, but for everyone who might face the same treatment after you. Stay with me because what unfolded changed not just my career, but the entire company in ways no one could have predicted. My name is Alex. At 29, I was the business development director at a tech consultancy in Denver. I joined straight out of my MBA, determined to prove myself in a male-dominated industry. I'm the daughter of a single mother who worked 2 jobs to put me through school, teaching me that persistence always pays off, a belief my boss Robert seemed determined to shatter. I'm naturally analytical, more comfortable with spreadsheets than office politics. But beneath my quiet exterior runs a fierce determination my mother called quiet thunder, the kind that builds slowly then strikes without warning. It's what carried me through countless rejections and setbacks in an environment where being overlooked seemed to be my specialty. When I first joined Mitchell & Associates, I admired Robert. He seemed confident, successful, commanding respect with his corner office and expensive suits. He'd grown the company from 15 to 80 employees in 5 years. But gradually, I noticed how he claimed credit for others' innovations, particularly mine. How he interrupted female employees mid-sentence but never the men. How promotions went to his golf buddies regardless of actual performance. The Pacific Industries account had been my obsession for 2 years. No one else wanted the challenge. They were notoriously difficult, having fired 3 consulting firms before us. I studied their business model, learned their industry inside out, and slowly built trust with Harrison and his executive team. What started as a small project management contract had grown into our potential biggest client ever. Each week, I sent Robert detailed progress reports. Each week, they vanished into what felt like a black hole. In executive meetings, he'd vaguely reference our West Coast initiatives, without mentioning my name. When positive feedback came from Harrison, Robert would forward it to the leadership team with comments like "Our strategy is working," conveniently removing my signature from the email chain. Still, I persisted. My mother hadn't sacrificed everything for me to quit because one man refused to see my value. The morning after being denied my raise, I arrived early to find Linda, our office manager, already at her desk. With her sharp eyes and 15 years at the company, she saw everything that happened within these walls. "Tough meeting yesterday?" she asked, sliding a cup of coffee toward me. I hesitated. Office gossip wasn't my style, and complaining felt unprofessional. "I heard," she said simply. "Robert was bragging to the partners about how he managed expectations with you." My grip tightened on the warm cup. "Is that what he calls it?" Linda peered over her glasses. "You know, I've been here since this place had 12 employees. Seen a lot of talented people come and go. The ones who survive aren't always the most skilled, they're the ones who learn when to strike back." "I just want my work to speak for itself," I said. "How's that working out for you?" She raised an eyebrow. I had no answer. "The board meeting today," she continued. "Robert's planning to present the Pacific Industries deal. 30 slides about his brilliant strategy." My stomach dropped. "How do you know that?" "I format all the presentations. Been doing it for years." She leaned forward. "Alex, your name doesn't appear once. Not even in the acknowledgements." I should have felt angry, but instead, a strange calm settled over me. The situation was so absurd it had crossed into clarity. "What time is Harrison calling today?" Linda asked. I checked my calendar. Around 2 p.m. He wants to discuss the final contract terms before their board meeting tonight. Interesting, Linda said. The board meeting starts at 1:30. We exchanged a look of perfect understanding. I'd better make sure the conference room's audio system is working properly, she said with a hint of a smile. By 1:25 p.m., all 12 board members were filing into our main conference room. I took a seat along the wall rather than at the table, my phone placed visibly beside me. Robert stood at the front, clicking through his presentation slides while our IT team adjusted the projector. Stephen, Robert's deputy and loyal follower, distributed copies of the quarterly report, my report, with my name removed from every page. I watched board members flip through the analysis I'd spent nights perfecting, stopping at the growth projections that had exceeded every target. At exactly 1:30, Robert cleared his throat. Let's begin. I want to start by celebrating an exceptional quarter. As you'll see on page 6, our growth has surpassed projections by 18%. He spoke for 25 minutes, highlighting achievements across departments. When he reached business development, he clicked to a slide showing the Pacific Industries logo alongside ours. Now for our crown jewel, he said. As many of you know, I've been cultivating a relationship with Pacific Industries on the West Coast. Through careful relationship building, I've positioned us for their largest contract ever. I felt heat rise in my cheeks as several board members glanced my way, then quickly back to their notes. My strategic approach has been to demonstrate value incrementally, earning trust through consistent delivery, he continued. My approach. My relationship building. My late nights and weekend calls and industry research. I expect to finalize a $15 million exclusive partnership within days, Robert announced. This will be the largest deal in company history. Just as he clicked to the next slide, my phone lit up. The caller ID read, Harrison Mitchell, Pacific Industries. Perfect timing. I raised my hand slightly. Robert paused, irritation flashing across his face. Yes, Alex. I'm sorry to interrupt, I said clearly. It's Harrison from Pacific Industries. Should I take it or call back after the meeting? The room fell silent. Robert's expression flickered between annoyance and panic. We're in a board meeting, he said stiffly. Of course. I'll let him know you're unavailable to discuss the contract signing. More silence. I could practically see Robert calculating the optics of dismissing a call from our biggest potential client in front of the entire board. No, he finally said. Take it briefly. I answered the phone. Good morning, Harrison. You're actually on speaker with our board during our quarterly meeting. Perfect timing. Harrison's voice filled the room. I was calling with news I wanted to share with you first, but now everyone can hear. I caught Robert's panicked expression. He clearly hadn't expected Harrison to be so eager to speak with me specifically. Our board met this morning, Harrison continued. We've approved the exclusive partnership at $15 million annually, renewable for 3 years. Your innovative approach and deep understanding of our industry impressed everyone. The room went completely still. A $15 million annual contract, it would triple our revenue. That's wonderful news, I replied, maintaining professional composure while my heart raced. There's more, Harrison said. As we discussed in our private conversations, we've been developing an internal consulting division. Our board has officially approved our offer to you, Director of Strategic Partnerships, at $275,000 annually, plus equity and benefits. We believe your vision aligns perfectly with our expansion plans. I watched Robert's face drain of color as he gripped the podium. I'm honored by your confidence in me, I said carefully. This comes at an interesting time. I hope that means you'll consider it seriously, Harrison replied. Oh, and one more thing before I let you return to your meeting. We should mention that the acquisition talks will begin next week. Murmurs broke out across the room. Acquisition? No one had mentioned any acquisition. Acquisition? I asked, though I suspected what was coming. Yes, our potential purchase of your company. Didn't your leadership team inform everyone? We've been in preliminary discussions about acquiring Mitchell & Associates to strengthen our consulting capabilities. We'd want your input on organizational structure and leadership assessment. The room erupted in hushed conversations and shocked expressions. Robert stood frozen, his presentation forgotten on the screen behind him. I believe this might be news to some of my colleagues, I said carefully. Perhaps we should discuss the details later today? Of course. I apologize if I've spoken out of turn. Please call me after your meeting to discuss next steps. Congratulations to everyone, this will be an exciting partnership. The call ended, leaving deafening silence in the conference room. Robert cleared his throat. Let's take a 15-minute break, he announced, his voice strained. We'll resume with the financial update. As people filed out, buzzing with questions, Robert approached me. My office. Now, he hissed. I followed him down the hallway, aware of eyes tracking our movement. Inside his office, he closed the door and turned to me. What acquisition? What job offer? What have you been discussing with them without authorization? I maintained my composure. Harrison reached out directly last month about their interest in acquiring a strategic consulting firm. I forwarded you 2 emails about it. I also mentioned their expansion plans during our strategy meeting 3 weeks ago. Robert's face reddened. I don't recall any of this. I have the email thread saved, along with your responses saying you'd handle it at the executive level. As for the job offer, that was unexpected. I haven't given them an answer. He ran a hand through his hair, processing the implications. This is all moving too fast. We need to slow this down, renegotiate terms. The terms seem quite favorable, I said. The valuation would be 40% above market rate. I assumed you were pleased with the arrangement. We can't just let them take over, his voice rose. And we certainly can't have them restructuring based on your recommendations. I looked at him steadily. Yesterday, you told me my performance didn't justify a raise despite generating nearly half our new business. Today, our largest client offered me a position at 4 times my current salary because of that same performance. Which assessment do you think is more accurate? If you're enjoying this story, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Click the notification bell so you never miss our weekly stories of workplace justice and sweet revenge. Our community thrives on sharing these moments when underestimated people finally get their due. And trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next in Alex's showdown. Robert stared at me, his confidence visibly crumbling as reality set in. For the first time since I'd known him, he seemed speechless. Look, he finally said, lowering his voice to a more conciliatory tone. Perhaps I was hasty yesterday. We could revisit your compensation. A 30% raise instead of 20%. Effective immediately. I studied the man who had dismissed my contributions for years, now scrambling to salvage his position with money he denied me just 24 hours earlier. This isn't about the raise anymore, Robert. Then what do you want? A promotion? A corner office? Recognition? Respect? Something you can't suddenly offer when it's convenient. He leaned against his desk, attempting to regain composure. You don't understand the pressures of running a company like this. Sometimes leadership requires difficult decisions about attribution to maintain competitive positioning. Save it, I interrupted, surprising myself with my boldness. For 3 years, I've watched you take credit for others' work, not just mine. Sarah developed the client retention system that saved us millions. Kevin created the project management framework everyone praises. Yet somehow these become leadership initiatives in your presentations. His eyes narrowed. That's how business works. Everything ultimately reflects executive vision. And now your executive vision has led us to an acquisition where the new owners want my input on leadership assessment. I let that sink in before continuing. They specifically asked for my evaluation of organizational strengths and weaknesses. The threat wasn't subtle. Robert's fate potentially rested in my hands. You wouldn't sabotage your colleagues out of personal vendetta, he said, but uncertainty crept into his voice. I'd never harm this team. Unlike you, I value everyone's contributions. I moved toward the door. The meeting's about to resume. Shall we continue pretending nothing has changed? The remainder of the board meeting was a study in discomfort. Robert attempted to proceed with the agenda, but questions about the acquisition dominated discussion. With each inquiry, he deferred vaguely to ongoing negotiations, while avoiding eye contact with me. By 4 p.m., the office was buzzing with speculation. My colleagues approached cautiously, probing for information about Pacific Industries and potential restructuring. I answered honestly but carefully, conscious that my words now carried weight. Linda caught me as I returned from a coffee break. "Your office has been busy," she whispered, nodding toward my door. Sure enough, a line of anxious colleagues waited outside, each clutching folders and portfolios, evidence of contributions they feared had been overlooked. First was Sarah, our client success manager who'd been passed over for promotion twice. "I just wanted to remind you about the retention program," she began tentatively. "I have documentation of the development process if it's relevant to any discussions." After her came Kevin, then Rachel, then David, each recounting projects where their work had been absorbed into Robert's narrative of executive success. With each conversation, the pattern became clearer: talented people systematically denied recognition. At 5:30, my phone rang again. Harrison wanted to schedule a video call to discuss transition details. I reserved the small conference room away from Robert's office. On screen, Harrison appeared with two Pacific Industries executives I'd met during their site visit last month. After exchanging pleasantries, they outlined their vision for the acquisition. "We value Mitchell & Associates' technical expertise," Harrison explained. "But we've observed concerning leadership practices during our due diligence." "What sort of practices?" I asked, though I already knew. "Credit concentration, decision bottlenecks, talent retention issues. Our research shows several key contributors left within the past 18 months, citing lack of recognition." I nodded. "That aligns with my observations. We'd like you to prepare a comprehensive talent assessment identifying who truly drives innovation and client satisfaction. This will inform our restructuring decisions." He paused. "Regardless of your decision about the director position, we value your insight." The conversation continued for an hour, covering integration timelines and announcement protocols. By the end, I understood my unexpected power. I could shape the future of the company and everyone who worked there. Walking back to my office, I passed Robert huddled with Stephen and two other managers. Their worried expressions told me they were discussing damage control. They fell silent as I passed. My desk phone rang moments after I sat down. Robert's assistant requested my presence in his office. When I arrived, only Robert was there, sitting behind his desk with a manila folder in front of him. "Close the door," he said without looking up. I did, then remained standing. "I've been reviewing your personnel file," he began, opening the folder. "Your initial interview notes mention, tends to work independently, and may need encouragement to assert leadership presence. These concerns have persisted." I almost laughed at the transparent attempt to undermine my confidence. "Are those the same reviews where I exceeded every performance target?" He ignored my question. "The point is, Alex, you lack the executive presence to guide a restructuring process. Your technical skills are valuable, but you don't understand organizational dynamics. Is that why Pacific Industries offered me a director position?" His jaw tightened. "They don't know you like I do. They see quarterly results, not day-to-day limitations." "Interesting perspective," I replied. "What exactly did you call me here to discuss?" He closed the folder and leaned forward. "I'm offering you a deal. Support me during this transition. Emphasize my strategic vision to the acquisition team. In return, you'll receive the senior director promotion you've wanted, plus the 30% raise we discussed." The proposal was so predictable I felt almost disappointed. "And if I decline?" "Then I'll be forced to highlight certain performance inconsistencies in my handover reports. Your initial hesitation with the Pacific Industries cultural integration, for instance, or your reluctance to participate in team leadership activities." Blackmail, thinly veiled as professional feedback. I remained silent, considering my response. "Additionally," he continued, "I've prepared an alternative acquisition proposal for the board, one that maintains our current executive structure while still delivering shareholder value. You're assuming the board will choose your leadership over Pacific's offer." "I founded this division," he said, voice rising slightly. "The board respects my vision." I studied him, this man who had built something significant yet couldn't share credit for its success. There was something almost pathetic in his desperation. "I'll consider your proposal," I said finally. "You have until tomorrow morning. The emergency board meeting is at 9 a.m. I left without further comment, my mind already sorting through options. Back at my desk, I found a message from Harrison requesting our talent assessment by the following afternoon. The timing wasn't coincidental. Pacific wanted my input before finalizing their approach with our board. That evening, I stayed late reviewing 3 years of projects, team compositions, and results. The pattern was unmistakable. Our most successful initiatives came from collaborative teams where Robert had minimal involvement. Yet he had positioned himself as the architect of each success. At 8 p.m., Linda knocked on my door, purse already on her shoulder. "Still here? You should rest before tomorrow's chaos." "Almost finished," I said, gesturing to my notes. She lingered in the doorway. "You know, in 15 years, I've kept many secrets for Robert. Professional discretion and all that." I looked up, sensing she had more to say. "But there's something you should see before you make any decisions." She placed a flash drive on my desk. Board presentation drafts from the last 2 years. Notice how they evolve from initial submission to final version. "How did you get these?" "I format all executive presentations. Always keep backups in case of technical issues." She gave me a meaningful look. "Technical issues happen quite frequently around here." After she left, I plugged in the drive. The files revealed a systematic pattern. Initial presentations credited team members by name, while final versions consolidated achievements under executive leadership initiatives. In some cases, entire slides featuring individual contributors were deleted. Most damning were the track changes showing Robert's user ID, explicitly removing names and reassigning credit. One comment on a presentation about Sarah's retention program read, "Remove individual attribution position as executive strategy." It was nearly 11 p.m. when I finished my analysis. I had what I needed, not just for my own vindication, but for everyone whose contributions had been erased. The next morning, I arrived early to find an email from Robert reiterating his offer with additional pressure tactics. I didn't respond. Instead, I prepared 2 documents, my talent assessment for Pacific and a separate presentation for the board meeting. At 8:45, board members began arriving. I nodded politely as they passed, receiving curious looks in return. They'd all heard about yesterday's revelation, though none addressed it directly. At 8:55, Robert intercepted me in the hallway. "Your decision," he demanded. "I'll be presenting my perspective to the board," I said simply. His expression hardened. "Remember what we discussed. Actions have consequences." "They certainly do." The boardroom fell silent as I entered behind Robert. 12 board members sat around the mahogany table, with 3 Pacific Industries representatives joining via video conference. I took a seat along the wall, deliberately positioning myself as an observer rather than participant. Board Chair Margaret called the meeting to order. "As you're all aware, we've received an acquisition offer from Pacific Industries. We're here to discuss its implications and determine our response." She nodded to Robert. As Managing Director, Robert will present his assessment and recommendation. He stood, projecting confidence as he distributed printed materials. "Thank you, Margaret. While this offer appears attractive on the surface, I have serious concerns about the proposed leadership restructuring. Our success stems from our current organizational structure, a structure I've carefully developed." For 30 minutes, he outlined his counterproposal, accepting Pacific's investment while maintaining existing leadership. He emphasized stability, continuity, and his personal relationships with key clients. "Questions?" Margaret asked when he finished. "Yes," said one board member. "The Pacific offer specifically mentions concerns about credit concentration and talent retention. Could you address those?" Robert smiled dismissively. High-performing professionals often desire more recognition than organizational realities allow. Every company balances individual ambitions with cohesive leadership. Our retention rates are within industry standards. Margaret turned to the video screen. "Harrison, would you like to respond?" Harrison nodded. "Our due diligence raised specific concerns about how contributions are recognized and rewarded. We believe the company's future growth depends on properly valuing talent. That's why we requested Alex's assessment. All eyes turned to me. Alex, Margaret said, would you share your perspective? I stood, connecting my laptop to the projector. I've prepared a brief presentation analyzing our team structure and project outcomes. Robert's expression shifted from confidence to alarm as my first slide appeared: attribution analysis, project success factors, and credit distribution. For the next 20 minutes, I methodically presented data showing how our most successful projects correlated with collaborative leadership rather than top-down direction. I highlighted team members whose contributions had been systematically obscured in executive presentations. And finally, I said, reaching my conclusion, I'd like to address the question of credit appropriation. I displayed a series of before and after slides from Linda's flash drive, showing Robert's systematic removal of individual contributors' names. These track changes document a pattern of credit reassignment affecting at least 15 employees over 2 years. I paused. This pattern correlates directly with our increasing turnover rate among high performers. The room was absolutely still. Robert stared at me with undisguised hatred. To be clear, I continued, I'm not questioning our technical capabilities. Our team is exceptional. But their continued motivation depends on leadership that values their contributions. Margaret studied me carefully. What would you recommend, Alex? A flatter organizational structure with distributed leadership responsibilities. Team-based performance metrics rather than individual heroics. And most importantly, transparent attribution of ideas and innovations. I glanced at the video screen where Harrison nodded approvingly. Thank you, Margaret said. Robert, would you like to respond? He stood slowly, his composure visibly strained. These selective examples don't reflect the full context of our operational decisions. Leadership sometimes requires difficult choices about attribution to maintain competitive positioning. I've always acted in the company's best interests. By taking credit for others' work? Asked a board member. By presenting a unified executive vision to clients and partners, he countered. The discussion continued for another hour, growing increasingly tense as board members questioned specific instances of credit appropriation. Throughout, Robert maintained that his actions were standard executive practice, even as evidence mounted against him. Finally, Margaret called for a short break. As people filed out, Robert approached me, speaking low enough that only I could hear. You've made a serious mistake. Even if they replace me, your reputation is finished. No one trusts a whistleblower. I met his gaze calmly. I'm not the one who betrayed this team, Robert. When the meeting reconvened, Margaret announced their decision. We voted to accept Pacific Industries' acquisition offer, including the leadership restructuring provisions. Robert will transition to a consulting role during integration, with his long-term position to be determined. The following weeks transformed our company. Pacific appointed an interim leadership team that included me as Director of Business Development, a position I accepted instead of the Pacific role, choosing to remain with the team I'd grown to care about. Robert cleared out his office on a Friday afternoon, avoiding eye contact with everyone. His reign of intimidation dissolved quickly as people realized they could safely share ideas and claim rightful credit for their work. 3 months after the acquisition, we gathered for our quarterly review. Project teams proudly presented their own achievements, names prominently displayed on slides. Collaboration flourished as fear receded. Our turnover rate dropped to 0. After the meeting, Linda found me in my new office, not the corner suite Robert had occupied, but a glass-walled space in the heart of our work area. Quite a transformation, she observed. People actually laugh in the hallways now. Change was overdue, I said. I just wish it hadn't required such drama. She shook her head. Some lessons only come through consequences. Speaking of which. She handed me an industry newsletter, open to a small announcement. Robert had accepted a project manager position at a struggling startup, several steps down from his former status. The business world notices how you treat people, Linda said. Eventually. That evening, I received an email from Harrison with our latest client satisfaction scores, the highest in company history. Attached was a performance review praising our culture of recognition and authentic leadership. I forwarded it to the entire team with a simple note: this belongs to all of us. True leadership isn't about claiming credit, it's about creating space for everyone to shine. If this story resonated with you, please take a moment to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever had your contributions overlooked or witnessed someone else's work being claimed by a superior? How did you handle it? Our community thrives on these shared experiences of workplace justice and personal growth. Remember, recognition isn't just about ego, it's about creating environments where talent can flourish. Sometimes the most powerful response to being undervalued isn't walking away, but helping build something better for everyone. Subscribe now for more stories of resilience, redemption, and the sweet satisfaction of earning your rightful place.